Well, YouTube, it's Petey back again with the yellow guitar. This has been kind of a long road modifying this thing. Re, I got it, I tore it apart, repainted it, and then been experimenting with different parts, different pickups, attempting to get something that is serviceable. One guitar to rule them all, to do all the sounds, and it just was not happening. Until last night. I figured out what I was doing wrong, what the issue was, and I'll tell you, right off the bat, a traditional Stratocaster does not have a humbucking pickup in the bridge position. This double pickup here, you see these are singles, it has a single down here too. When you put a double pickup in here, they start calling it a super strat. Like a real super strat, it'll also have a different wang bar. It'll have a real tricked out whammy bar with like screws sticking out of the back where you adjust it. And while this isn't stock, and I am going to go over the entire guitar and tell you everything I replaced, because the only thing that's stock in this guitar is this piece of wood, you know, the neck, this piece of wood, the body, the 4 screws that hold it on, hold the neck in, these 4 screws here, the plate, and this chrome plate here. This chrome plate here is stock. Everything else has been replaced. This is the second pick guard. And the first one didn't have the black line. This is called a 3-ply, so it's white, black, white, like a sandwich. And I really like that definition of that line. It kicks it up from cheap guitar to nice guitar when you have that line in there. So it was like $10 for this, and in order to fit this humbucker in here, you have to try to cut a hole, and I was all like, man, I'm gonna screw that hole up. I'm not that good at this type of modification. Well, I did it last night at like 5 in the morning with a propane torch and a scalpel. And I just did it smaller, like I sketched it out, marked it, and then I did it smaller, and then I went over with a large, number 12 X-Acto blade, the big chunker, and I just scraped, because it had some, you know, it was a little bit, it wasn't straight, but I just kept scraping, and I squared it out good. I mean, it doesn't look bad. You can see there's a hole here. That was the original hole on this side because it sits at an angle. The single does. So I had to drill this hole up here to get the humbucker to sit straight. And then that lower hole, what I did, I put masking tape on the bottom of the hole and I filled it up with baking soda. And I real carefully dropped a drop of super glue in the top. And when the super glue hits the baking soda, it turns into a solid. And then I flipped it over and peeled the masking tape off and put a droplet of super glue on the back. So that's how I filled that hole. If you get real close, you can see it. It's in between the knob and the pickup. There's that little hole that I filled there. But as far as the sound, having one guitar to do it all, what I mean by that is traditional warm, clean Stratocaster sounds, which I get a lot of that from position 4 on this switch and position 2. Those are my quacky spanky, I love you Stratocaster sounds. And they're still there, even though actually the 2 sound is really good. It's really defined and really good. Even with this super strong, this is a 15K. It's a hot, well, these are like 6. These are Alnico 5 pickups. So we had, and to finish that thought, what I mean by one guitar to do it all means clean and filthy, modern metal, high gain distortion tone. And in order to do that, you really need this. So the road that I had went down, I tried to get away with not having a humbucker here. I tried to keep it single, single, single. So what did I do? I used a hot rail. This is a pickup. It looks like if you took this with the two rails and shrunk it to this narrow size of a single. That's what a hot rail is. And the original hot rail, I believe it was made by DiMarzio. It wasn't Seymour Bumpkin. I don't like him. I don't like him. If you read about how he just kind of skimmed and scammed his way into stealing Jeff Beck's guitar, I just, everyone, like, do we have to put these guys up on a pedestal? Because Robert Keeley's not your friend. Robert Keeley cares about one thing, and that's getting everything in your wallet into his. Honestly. Now, the original hot rail, I believe DiMarzio, you can still get them. They're great. They're also $100. Me, my big sad story, my violin, I can't afford to be spending $100 on a pickup. So I went the budget route. They have no shortage of wonderful reviews all over the internet telling you how great a hot rail is. But I got a $12 hot rail and it sounds unbelievable. Okay, just because it works. Like, do you have another guitar to compare it against? Do you own another guitar with a humbucker in it? Because if you actually compared those, you would begin to see that it's muddy. There's no high end, there's no treble. It sounds like somebody threw a blanket factory over your amp. A wet blanket over your amp. Excuse me, that's the joke. For me, the hot rail was the whole problem. While it looked great, I mean, it didn't look great. Ideally, you have, this is one of these things, does not belong here. You have this, it doesn't really look right. And this guitar, I have brass saddles, I have a gold tremolo arm, I have brass knobs. It's got like a vibe going on. It's supposed to, I'm a little bit concerned about the looks because this is what I use when I do the videos. We do videos with my duo. We film ourselves performing original music that I've written and I upload that to my YouTube. So I want to have this, it's a remote. I can't bring 4 guitars and be switching them off. It's outdoors. I don't want to bring something nice. So I purchased this Squier Strat for, it was $56 shipped. And we got it from an online auction. It was a black with a plain white with white pickup covers, white knobs. So I replaced everything on this guitar except for this piece of wood, the neck, the 4 bolts that hold them together, the metal plate, and it still says Squier. It still says made in China here. I'm not trying to fool anybody with this fancy fender decal that I put on here. That's just the only one I could get on eBay. I couldn't get a sticker that said Squier. So I put the regular Fender Stratocaster sticker on it. The only other thing that's stock is the tremolo plate, but I have a brass shorty block installed. I have a real chunky brass block that holds the string retainer block that's inside the mass, and brass saddles, and then the plate is original. Now, this plate is the same. This plate and this jack are the same. I did replace the pick guard. Now, This is a whole can of worms with Squire pick guards. If you're able to find someone who sells you a pick guard for a Strat, it is not for a Squire. They sell the pick guards for the Americans and the Mexicans, not these cheap Squires. You might be able to find some people claiming that they're selling them for, but if you look at the dimensions, they give you the measurements between all the screws, and none of them matched. So I was able to find this, and it had no holes. So I took my old one. It had the holes for the pickups and the pickup hardware screws and the switch and the holes for the volume and tone controls. But it didn't have the outer mounting holes, which was ideal because I took my old one, lined it up, put pencil marks on it, drilled it out, took a counter chamfer bit to make it where the screw fits in it, and Bob's your uncle. So initially I had put in, there's a brand called Fleor, F-L-E-E-O-R, and I had put Fleor Alnico 5, a full set, single coils, 5K, 5.5K, 6K. Then I started realizing that a 6K single coil wouldn't cut it for metal, for modern high gain metal. It's an anemic pickup. So I started considering putting something in here, which led me to a hotrail. This is a humbucker pickup that's in the size of a single coil. And there's all of the reviews that you read are just saying how great it is. I'm here to tell you hotrails are not great. They're great if you hate treble. If you don't like upper mid-range and treble, if you like the sound of putting a wet blanket over your amp, run, don't walk to get a hotrail. I like a lot of treble. A Strat to me is defined by its high-end chime. That's what a Strat is. So my thinking was I have a Steinberger Spirit guitar where I went through replacing the pickups on that, and I learned about impedance differences and how you really want your pickups to be in the same value in the ballpark, so when you're changing the switch there isn't a big volume jump. It doesn't do that. So when I ordered my first hot rail, there was 4 hot rails that I went through. My first hot rail was a 6. And it worked. It matched with the impedance, but when I did any distortion on it, it sounded terrible. And the reason it sounded terrible was it was just neutering the high end on the guitar. So I ordered a 14. This is the impedance. So I originally, it was 5, 5.5, and 6. So I put a 6 in. Didn't work. I thought, well, if I get a hotter pickup, that'll give me what I'm missing. I ordered 14. It comes. I measure it with my multimeter. It's 9. So I sent it back because it was supposed to be a 14. Another one comes. I measure it. It's 8.5. So I sent it back and I ordered a hot rail from Fleor. I ordered a 14. It came. I measured it. It was 13.888. So I installed it. So to play the guitar that night. Yes, it's louder, but it still sounds terrible because there's no high end. So anytime that this would happen, like I would go grab another guitar like this one with these like $17 ceramic humbuckers in it, and there it was. There's my tone. So eventually I just got fed up. I had read, okay, I'm not done. I had played with the tone capacitors and I had replaced all the potentiometers. I tried 250Ks, I tried 500Ks. What's in here right now is 27 millimeter brass shaft, 500K logarithmic pots all the way around. And I have like a real thick ground rail. It's all the wiring is really nice in here. It's really nice. It's all been replaced. It's cloth wiring. The ground rails they're not cloth. They're but real high gauge, real thick wire, and then a really nice thick coaxial carrying signal output to the jack plate. So I've got these songs programmed. We've got 16 songs, and I've made these patches with a multi-effector that uses amp modeling and cabinet sims with an EQ. And we're running that through a mixing board that has a custom built headphone amp with Burr Brown op amps. Upgraded EQ. I replaced all of the op amps. I got rid of the TLO72s, and I have legitimate real Texas Instruments NE5532, not the import, the fake, the counterfeits from China, where the Texas Instruments logo, Texas, looks more like Staten Island. No, not those. These are the real deal. They chug the current. When you test the current draw with your multimeter, it's way high, like it's supposed to be. So this is, Superlux headphones. They're 50 millimeter titanium drivers. It's a good system. It sounds really good. There's no shortage of high end on it. I use it's called a Sonic Maximizer, BBE Sonic Maximizer. I've got those built into a lot of the stuff. My EQ has it built in if I want to have that on the whole mix. I've got one built in on the MP3 player for the drum tracks. As we play along to drum tracks that I put together with synthesizer accompaniment. My wife plays bass, I play the guitar. So it's a really good monitoring system that's carefully put together and tweaked to no end to get it to sound right. And I just can't get, like, if I use any other guitar to set it up, I can get the tone, but then when I switch to this, so I'm thinking it's got to be that hotrail. After reading in forums, everyone's giving them great reviews, but then in some of the forums, people will mention, yeah, hotrail can be kind of muddy sometimes. A couple of people who knew what they were talking about mentioned that. So through this whole process of me being in denial and watching videos where these pros are like, you can't have one guitar to do it all, I'm starting to think, no, I've really screwed up. I've set myself up for failure. I've wasted all this time with unrealistic expectations, wasted money buying these parts. Well, at least I had fun. Well, no, I didn't. I have a horrific, painful back injury. This sucks working on this thing. So my wife's been playing this Chinese bass that has these Safu, or they're soap bar pickups. And there's a ton of high end and upper mid. So the one night I grabbed her old bass. It's my Unicorn. It's a headless bass. And I was like, man, this doesn't, there's no highs and no mids all of a sudden, And I had seen on AliExpress, they had the same pickup. It's inner bass. They were selling them for $11. So I bought one to put in the old bass to see if we could get that treble back. And it did. That bass has new life to it now. So the old pickup that was in there, it was not a bass guitar pickup. It was a pickup I had bought like 20 years ago. Before this was I didn't even I don't know where I got it. I just know I paid like hardly anything for it. I may have gotten it on eBay, but it was like maybe 15 years ago. It was a long time ago. I got this pickup. So I put the soap bar in my wife's guitar and I take this humbucker out, and it's what's in this guitar now. This is that humbucker. It's called a slug rail, and I put this crap. It's 15K, but I installed it in the guitar, and we played. There's all my high end. So the problem was those hot rails. It was me being in denial. I didn't want to cut a square hole into this pick guard because all of the pick guards they sell you that have H or SSH, single hum, are for American Strats, and the holes don't line up. This pickup I bought, it didn't have the holes in it, so I took my pick guard and my old one, laid it on top of it, and traced the holes and drilled it out. Well, they don't sell a no-hole pickup that has a SSH. They don't sell them. Not the cheap $10 places. I looked. I looked on like four to six different days. I looked at this for like hours, looking through all of them. They don't sell them. So I would have had to get a different pick guard, fill these holes in with toothpicks and glue, and then drill holes that are like right next to it. I know people are like, it's a Strat. It's a Squire. It's going to be under the pick guard. It doesn't, I would just assume cut this square out and not have to buy anything else. Because I didn't even know. I'm like, at this point, I don't even know what's going on. And as soon as I put this generic slug rail I'm pretty sure this was $10. I have a good memory for stuff like that. This is a $10 pickup. So the point of it is I've got the Steinberger Spirit that I bought these Seymour or these DiMarzio Super Distortion clones that I think those are my favorite pickups out of everything I've tried of buying aftermarket stuff. Like I've tried the cheap Invaders, I've tried the Fligor El Nico, I've tried the Fligor Ceramics, tried these different things, other cheaper ones, but the ones that really like knocked my socks off, so I don't know. Honestly, I think a gold foil pickup would look insanely cool with all this brass down here, and I've got one here. I just don't know. Is that noisy? It's probably a single, and I really need a humbucker. So I'm more than likely gonna get there's a place on eBay. The guy calls himself Guitar Madness, and he sells different pickups that I think he winds himself, or he's just a really good distributor. But he has something, I think it's called a burst bucker. It looks just like because I don't know if he sells the Super Distortion clones anymore. But in the past, when I've had questions, I've emailed him and he responds the next day, and he's intelligent and he'll tell you what's up. And I've bought multiple things from him before. So the long and the short of it is, you might hear people say that you can't do it all with one guitar. Well, I went down the road of trying to do it, this idea using a hot rail, and man, it did not work out for me. But as soon as I went down the road of using a regular humbucker pickup, of course it worked. And that thing about having 500K pots making your singles too bright, that's not the case for me. They're not too bright at all. They're fine. It's fine. And ultimately, the way that I have this wired, this tone control is for these two pickups, I think. No, it's for this one. But yeah, I could just assume rewire it. So ultimately, if somebody tells you you can't have one guitar to do it all, that might be your opinion. But for now, we played last night, and I was over the moon. I was over the moon. So the name of this video will be Hot Rails Are Dull. Hot rails are muddy, right? Anyway, you guys, thank you for joining me on this one. I know it was long and in detail. But it is what it is. It's kind of a mouthful, but the experience was a lot of ups and downs, mostly downs. Anyway, you guys, we got those 16 originals. We're going to be playing those for you. So that's the bright side of it, is the music is good. You're going to dig it. And it's funny because when the tone isn't there, I can't play. I can't play. My wife's sitting here playing away, dun, 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 and I'm just like, it's just sitting here steaming, you know. And it's not as simple as reaching over to the mixing board, turning up the treble on the EQ. I tried that. All right, you guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.